From Studio 19, I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is a World Gone Mad episode 243. And always so much to talk about, so here we go. Remember the Lincoln Memorial Reflecting Pool? You know, the one I just talked about last episode? Hopefully you gave it a listen. The pool that turned green. The pool that got treated. The pool that got drained. The pool that got coated. The pool that got more attention than most public schools. Well, good news, America. The reflecting pool fix is breaking. I know. Nobody could have seen this coming, except every person who's ever owned a home, painted a fence, repaired a deck, fixed a driveway, replaced a roof, assembled IKEA furniture, installed a software update, or generally existed on Earth for more than 15 minutes. The coating in the reflecting pool is already peeling. Not just any coating, the blue coating, the patriotic blue coating. The coating that was supposed to help solve the problem is already coming up the bottom of the reflecting pool. And it gets even better. The original problem was green algae, green. One of the companies brought in to help solve the green water problem is called Green Water Services. The problem was green water. The company is Green Water. The water turned green again, and now the blue coating is peeling off. That's right. We took a giant pool of water, declared war on the fact that it looked like a giant pool of water, spent a pile of money fixing it, thank you, Trump, celebrated the fix, and now the fix needs a fix. At this point, I don't think it's a reflecting pool anymore. I think it's a federal government pilot program. Give it 6 months. It'll have a task force, a blue ribbon commission, 3 consultants, a congressional hearing, and a follow-up study explaining why the original study underestimated the peeling. The best part is that nobody ever asks the most important question. What exactly was the emergency? Was Lincoln looking down from the memorial saying, "My God, the water isn't the correct shade. Somebody save the Republic"? We've reached the point where America can't even build a sandwich, people, without creating a maintenance issue. We fixed the pool. The fix broke. Now they'll fix the fix. Then they'll repair the repair. Then they'll announce a modernization initiative for the repaired repair. By 2030, the only thing left in the reflecting pool will be contractors standing ankle deep in paperwork. Okay, Barack Obama is getting a presidential center in Chicago. And before anybody starts screaming about politics, let me point out something remarkable. The man left office nearly a decade ago. He's still building things that involve libraries, education, public spaces, community programs, gardens, museums, opportunities for young people, presidential stuff. That's what struck me when I was learning about the Obama Presidential Center. There are plans for community space, programs for children and students, public gathering areas. Architecture designed to bring people in instead of drive people apart. The whole concept feels strangely familiar. It took me a minute to figure out why. Then it hit me. It's because it was designed by adults. Remember when presidents used to leave office and think about their legacy? George Washington got a monument. Lincoln got a memorial. Roosevelt got libraries. Obama gets a center focused on civic engagement and education. Donald Trump would probably build a monument to Donald Trump standing in front of a larger monument to Donald Trump. The gift shop would sell commemorative photographs of Donald Trump visiting the Donald Trump monument while explaining that nobody in history has ever monumented better than Donald Trump. That's the difference. Whether you agreed with Obama politically or not, the guy carried himself like he understood the job was bigger than him. He walked into a room, acted like the president. He walked onto a stage, acted like the president. He represented the country overseas and somehow managed to get through entire summits without claiming foreign leaders were begging for selfies. Obama leaves office, becomes associated with a center devoted to leadership, education, public service, and community engagement. Trump, currently the president, and somehow still manages to make every story about Donald Trump. That's a low bar, by the way, a remarkably low bar. The Obama Center isn't really about a building. It's about the contrast. One former president spends his post-White House years talking about leadership, education, democracy, public service, and the next generation, while the current president spends his time arguing with television personalities, claiming world leaders are desperate to have their picture taken with him, and turning every conversation into an infomercial starring himself. One Man's Legacy Project asks, how can I help the next generation? The other man's daily schedule often seems to ask, has everyone discussed me enough today? One man projects confidence. The other projects insecurity so aggressively it should qualify for federal infrastructure funding. Maybe that's why people still respond to Obama the way they do. Class never goes out of style. Dignity never goes out of style. Professionalism never goes out of style. You don't have to tell people you're important when your actions already do the talking. And that's something a presidential center can teach long after the president who inspired it has left the stage. President Obama, the true definition of class. Hey everyone, Wolfpack, I got a game for you. Guess who is now in charge of helping some of the students he has publicly insulted, right? Guess who now is in charge of doing that? The Department of Education is considering moving key special education oversight responsibilities over to Health and Human Services. Now, under normal circumstances, that'd be one of those government stories that makes people's eyes glaze over before the second sentence is finished. But these aren't normal circumstances because Health and Human Services is run by Robert F. Kennedy Jr. You know, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., the same RFK who spent years making statements about autism and disabilities that have angered families, educators, medical professionals, and advocacy groups across the country. So now we're supposed to watch this, pretend nobody notices the irony. You know, it's like hiring a guy who spent years complaining about airplanes and then announcing he's now in charge of air traffic control. I keep imagining the meeting where somebody proposed this. Who should oversee programs affecting some of the nation's most vulnerable students? Then somebody raised their hand and said, how about that guy who's already spent years upsetting many of the very families involved? And instead of being escorted from the room, everybody started taking notes. This is what drives me crazy about modern government. Somewhere along the way, qualifications become optional, and irony became a job requirement. We used to ask whether a person had expertise in a subject. Now we seem to ask whether they've generated enough controversy to dominate social media for 3 news cycles. If that's the hiring standard, the next Surgeon General will be selected from a YouTube comment section. Parents of children with disabilities don't care about Washington's organizational chart. They care whether services work. They care whether support exists. They care whether resources show up when they're needed. Washington keeps acting like it's rearranging furniture in a house that's already on fire, then congratulating itself because the couch now faces a different direction. Imagine being a parent hearing this announcement. RFK has anything to do with the Department of Education. Even if you support the move, you have to admit the optics are astonishing. That's like announcing a new animal welfare initiative and putting the neighborhood cat hater in charge of it. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But you can understand why people would stare at the press release and wonder whether somebody accidentally submitted the joke version. Then again, that seems to be the governing philosophy lately, right? The people making decisions never seem concerned with how those decisions sound to the people who actually have to live with those decisions. They make the announcement, they issue the talking points, they move on. Everybody else gets the anxiety, the uncertainty, and the consequences. And finally, Wolfpack, Italy's top diplomat has canceled the planned trip to the United States after a public dispute erupted between Donald Trump and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni. And honestly, once you've heard what started it, the cancellation is probably the least surprising part of the story. At the recent G7 summit in France, Trump and Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni were photographed together along with other world leaders. Days later, during an interview with the Italian television network LA7, Trump started talking about Meloni and the interaction. According to reports, Trump said, "She's probably happy I talked to her. I didn't have to talk to her." Then Trump kept going, as he does. "Meloni begged me to take a picture with her. She wanted a picture with me so badly. I wouldn't have taken it, but I felt sorry for her." Now think about that, Wolfpack, for a second, okay? We're not talking about a reality show contestant. We're not talking about a rival business person. We're talking about somebody yelling. We're not actually talking about somebody yelling at Trump on social media. None of those things. We're talking about the Prime Minister of one of America's allies, right? Meloni wasn't actually amused. She released a video saying that certain things deserve an immediate response. Then she went directly at the claim. "Donald Trump's statements are completely fabricated. I am frankly stunned." Then she added, "I don't know why the President of the United States behaves this way towards his own allies. After all, this isn't the first time this has happened," she said. And that's really the story. Forget politics for a minute. Forget left versus right. Forget Democrats and Republicans. What kind of grown adult says something like Trump said publicly? Even if the story were true, and Meloni said it isn't, who thinks it's a good idea to humiliate an ally on the world stage? What's the upside? What national interest is being served by announcing that a foreign leader supposedly begged for a photograph and that you only agreed because you felt sorry for her? And honestly, good for the Prime Minister. If someone publicly insulted me, made up a story about me begging for attention, and then bragged about it to the press, I'd cancel the trip with Trump also. I don't blame Meloni one bit. In fact, I applaud her. We all should. There ought to be consequences for acting this way. If the President of the United States wants to, behave like a jerk, he shouldn't be shocked when people stop showing up. That's not strength. It's not confidence. That's insecurity wearing a cheap disguise. Truly confident people don't spend their time telling everyone how desperately other people want their attention. Think about this. That's middle school behavior. That's the kid at the lunch table bragging that everybody wants to sit with him while secretly keeping score of those who didn't. The President of the United States is supposed to represent the country. Show some class. Show some dignity. Show some frigging basic respect. You don't have to agree with an ally. You don't have to like an ally. But publicly trying to embarrass an allied leader for no apparent reason isn't toughness. It's pettiness. So when Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni decides she's had enough and walks away, Maybe the real surprise isn't that Meloni canceled the trip. Maybe the surprise is that anyone still expects better behavior from Donald Trump. That's today's insight into a world gone mad. If you've enjoyed the podcast, found it informative, maybe got a laugh or two, please contribute to keeping this podcast around. I'm not backed by corporate media. There's no outside money other than my own wallet. So if you could please contribute to the GoFundMe below the description, you'll see the little link there. That makes a difference, everyone. I'm Jeff Allen Wolf. This is A World Gone Mad. I'll be back Monday. Until then, I urge you, the Wolfpack, remain skeptical, question everything. Please don't lose hope. And most of all, stay alert.